And before that discussion takes place, we just want to take a look at some of the sectors that are leading in job creation. Let's just look at that with the help of some graphics here. Right, so leading sectors. Now, this is, of course, according to that latest report by KNBS. It says that education, agriculture, fisheries, and manufacturing, those are the leading sectors when it comes to the job creation and opportunities given to young people in the market. Of course, totaling, of course, the new jobs, what they're saying is that there are about 897,000 new jobs that were created back in 2017. We'll be taking a look at that. All right, so we now want to have a discussion around that. Joining me right now in studio is Eddy Gicheru Oketch, who's the founder of Ongoza, and he's also a political economist. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that number, 897,000, and somebody would wonder, you know, when you talk about education, fisheries, and agriculture leading, you know, in job creation, what does that really mean?
Sure. First of all, I think that this is a very basic report.
Okay.
It's a routine report. It's not anything new, because every year the economic survey report comes out, and it basically indicates how many people are getting into the job market or the labor market. So the idea that 897,000 jobs have been created isn't really something news, because every year that happens. It basically shows the status of the economy. And then the biggest thing that it could help us do, first of all, it's very difficult to analyze jobs using an economic survey. If you want to analyze jobs, you wanna go into some in-depth discussion around labor force. And I think that the basis for discussing whether the economy is creating jobs could be perhaps to visit reports such as the labor force survey that was released in March, which was just an update of what has been going on in the country. But be it as it may, if you look at the survey that the economic survey that we have, it is statistically points towards economic policy. It is a critical indictment of what the government is doing in terms of economic policy, because if you find that about 90%, 83 to 90% variation of jobs are being created in the informal sector, and the government investment, public sector investment, is 90% towards the private sector. There is a big problem.
That's a big disconnect.
That's a big disconnect.
But also, just before we get, you know, deeper into, you know, what you're saying about the other labor report released in March, just taking a look at the difference between 2017 and 2016, that's about 40,000 more jobs. What does that say about our economic development?
Actually, it doesn't tell much, because our economic development should be measured by the economic growth, which basically is we measure that using the aggregate demand, which is basically how many goods were demanded in the economy, and then it is translated into how much money was exchanged. So the report actually shows more about income in the informal sector and in the formal sector. And the income does not translate into jobs. For instance, if you go to the agricultural sector, which is basically fisheries and other small peasantry kind of economic activities, not everybody who is economically productive there is employed. Maybe it's just a farmer who was having one animal that used to be a zebu, for instance, that they have adopted a new breed of animal and increased their milk 5 times or 10 times fold, so their income has increased. So in terms of economic growth, let's talk about it. The slowdown of the economy. You find that we had an inflation rate of about 11%. That is measured by consumer price index, which is basically how many, what is the average price of goods, what is the variation of goods, of the retail goods in the economy. But you see, if you look at the aggregate demand, which is all goods that were demanded that are not retail goods, you'll find that the government plays big role. For instance, in the last 1 year, we still saw a big investment on SGR. And when it comes to SGR, you see that there's big money that was used there, so that at the end of the year it is tallied,
Yes.
but they did not facilitate economic growth
Alright.
to an extent that it goes to the retail goods and services.
Alright.
So basically, the economy is on a slowdown. There's no proper economic growth, and therefore you can't discuss economic growth in the context of Kenya because of poor economic policy with regards to job creation.
So as Mwananchi, somebody who's listening right now, what are other indicators that that would inform anybody that there is economic growth in the country?
The biggest indicator for me would be a connection between the aggregate demand and the income that citizens are having, the increase of income. And that means that we need to start looking at the informal sector, not just as a place whereby we want to create jobs, but as a place whereby we want to increase income. How do we increase productivity of people in the grassroots communities, be it in urban centers as well as in the rural communities? Because that would be big. And essentially, it means that you look at what the survey says, that these are the areas that are creating more potential areas to invest in income generation projects, vis-a-vis how many people are being absorbed there, rather than just looking at the numbers in form of how many people got employed. So, for instance, you see right now the government is focusing on the big four.
Yes.
And the big four, if you look at what the survey says, is a big contradiction. Where there's opportunity for productivity is not where the government wants to focus on. The government wants to focus on what is enticing for capital. And that deviation is what the Mwananchi should actually indict, because if education sector is creating a lot of economic well-being for people, which the government chooses to talk about as employment, why is it not among the big four? And then the most important thing about that survey is what actually slowed down economic activities. It actually indicates 3 areas. One was political activities, right, which played a huge role in why the economy was slowed down. The second was weather conditions. And the third one was credit facilities, simple access to credit that can facilitate both small and medium enterprises as well as large investments. All those areas, there's no keen government policy to actually address them. So that disconnect makes it very difficult for Mwananchi to actually be productive. And that's why I was saying that it is important that we go back to the labor force survey of March 2018. So that
what does that particular survey, how different is it from this one that was released?
It is statistically important because it goes in depth. For instance, it looks at the size and the composition of the labor market, right? And then it looks at what is that composition in terms of sex, what is that composition in terms of the rural communities versus the urban community? What is the technical skills of the people in the labor market? Because when education is creating more employment as well as economic activities, then it means that it actually justifies what is in the labor force report in terms of we have got many people who have acquired skills, we've got many people who have acquired education, but they're not economically active or productive. So if you go deep into that, those are the areas where you want to invest in, because Kenya is still hugely, actually the survey also talks about this, Kenya is still hugely peasant economy as well as service economy. So if you look at those service areas that created a lot of economic activities for the common Mwananchi, is the government even looking at those areas? When you talk about big manufacturing, big projects that are consuming so much money, when the farmer in
just wants the
Kitui,
most basic,
just wants the basic improvement of their income from 5,000 to 10,000, and that is where the investment should go.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Eddy Gicheru Oketch, for your insights. He is the founder of Ongoza, and he's also a political economist. Thank you for your time, Eddy.